thank you so much for a fantastic presentation coming into this. I get really excited when I see the university speaking about the applications of blockchain technology and all the different ways that we can actually apply this technology to improve our lives. But I'm going to sort of give you guys a bit of a reality check exactly what's going on with this technology. My name is Katrina, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Civic Ledger. We're a blockchain company that's been basically around for 6 years. We were founded on the back of doing a proof of concept with the Queensland government looking at government issued assets. We worked with permits, we worked with Bitcoin and Colorcoin way back before Ethereum and all these other technologies and these platforms emerged. And over the last 6 years, I have learned so much about this technology and how we actually do get this technology into the hands of the people that we're trying to solve problems for. And I can tell you that we are still not there yet, and we're not going to be there for a very long time. And I'm going to take you through some of the work that we do, but I also want to make you feel absolutely excited at the same time, but also give you guys a little bit of a pulse exactly what it's like to be a blockchain company, building this technology, getting it into the market, and actually getting customers to use it. Just by declaration, I am a social scientist. I studied at Griffith University, I did humanities, I studied politics, political theory, cultural politics, gender studies, all those little things that make me and what I bring into the company that I do today. So some of those issues that we'll discuss today about the values and humanness is actually at the front and centre of how we build our technology. Because you have to ask yourself every day when you use this tech, do no harm, do no harm, do no harm. And it must be at the fundamental of how you build. But there's other things that I've learned about what we do in this technology space and the importance of being technology agnostic. We have seen the technology come and go, platforms come and go, and it's really hard when you're building this technology and your code base is bound to a particular distributed network, because it's an awful time trying to unpick all the code because you've actually committed yourself to a particular technology distributed network. So what I'm going to take you through today is through the lens of accounting. Even though I studied humanities, fundamentally at blockchain technology, what it does, it brings accountability into the verticals to which we're trying to solve problems. And one of the areas that we've been working in for the last many years is water markets. Now, water markets are an interesting thing. They're a thing that we know very well in Australia, but we go outside of Australia and people that go, no clue, do not understand what that actually is. Because Australia is an arid country and we grow food, we need to have the mechanisms to be able to share water across multiple beneficial users without exceeding the sustainable yield. But the problem with water is that it has a double accounting problem. It gets double spent. And we don't actually know how much water we have, how much is being used, who's sharing it, and how much is left. And as we move into much more of a water scarce world, which we are seeing today, accounting is going to be the fundamental importance on how we look at nature, how we understand nature, how we account for nature, and how it actually is valued within the global economy. So how does blockchain have a role to play in this? Let's get started. Right. As I said, you've met me, social scientist that happens to build technology. One of my collaborators is Dr. Fraser McLeod. Now, Dr. Fraser McLeod and I have been working together for 6 years. Prior to actually coming and working with Civic Ledger, Fraser worked at the Murray-Darling Basin Authority. And he was there 22 years ago when we actually designed the first ever water markets, so we could actually understand how do we put a price on water and how do we actually share water. Fraser has brought his many years experience into how we've actually solved the problem for water markets. And as I said, it's about accounting. And Fraser and I have been working very hard over many years, breaking the tech, throwing away what we've done, and where we are now is basically now we understand how to solve the problem and how we've actually put our tech stack together. The other interesting thing about technology and blockchain and all that sort of stuff is that when you are a company that builds with this tech, only 10% of your tech stack is blockchain. Everything else is normal tech. It is about JavaScript, nodes, REST, APIs, all that sort of other stuff. Using TypeScript, application layers, all that. Blockchain is an element that we put into our technology that allows us to rethink how to solve a problem. And what is so interesting from our development type of things I work with my developers is that they haven't come from a blockchain background. It's very hard to find very good blockchain developers. So you have to look to the market and get really smart people who are fascinated in solving problems. And when they start working with the tech, they start to think differently on how they code. Because all of a sudden they have to think about the data structures, taxonomies, relationships, and all that sort of stuff. And then we have to agree on what goes on chain and what goes off chain. And what determines what goes on and what goes off is not necessarily up to us. It's about regulation, and it's about legislation, and it's about cybersecurity, and CDR, GDP, all those other aspects of how we look at data. Now, Mark Twain is a really interesting fellow. Many years ago, he said something, I think it was about 1853, that whiskey is for drinking and water is for fighting over. Now, if you go outside of Australia, you go to the US, and California is in the worst drought of a century. They are running out of water. And what we're seeing now is literally every war across the planet has a water piece in it. And it's only going to get worse. So we have to solve this problem. But the challenging thing is, I get told a lot, is that this is a too hard problem to solve. Nobody can solve this problem. And then I turn around and I go, yeah, but everybody's obsessed with carbon markets. It's still a very difficult problem to solve. But water is this thing that people just find it very difficult to understand. But on the other side, which I'm going to talk about, is I do a lot of presentations about what I do. And sometimes I like to drill down to a particular aspect of our little chapter because this is big. So I want to flip it around and look at the criminology behind water. Because in New South Wales, I know we're in Victoria, but New South Wales has the biggest problem of water theft we have in our country. And New South Wales government, how they solve that problem is that they employ 1,000 gatekeepers that go out every day, go on farms and read meters. Yes, there is a perception that there is this thing called smart meters. No, there's not, guys. We all think that smart meter, IoT, sure, Katrina, just plug in the IoT and read the data from the smart meter in real time. No, that's not the reality. We still live in a world where we have analog meters, you have to take a photo, you have to email it in and have somebody verify it, and then they need to come and have a look at your meter and find out whether you've actually been manipulating it. That's why New South Wales is such a problem right now. So, problem, water theft. So global water theft is whereby water isn't paid for or counted. And the biggest theft happens in agriculture. And the reason why is because 70% of our freshwater supplies, which we only have about 1.5% on the planet, is dedicated to fresh water. Everything else is what we can't use. 70% of that 1.5 is used for agriculture. And agriculture is something that we need, because without agriculture, we don't have clothes, we can't get fed, we don't have animals, we just don't survive as humans. So water is a fundamental element to humanity. But because of global water supplies getting scarcer, climate change, and the lack of the value put on water through regulation, there's ways that farmers have to just go out and find water to grow their food and feed their families, and water theft is one of the biggest problems we have. So ag, even though we need it so much, they are responsible for half the world's water supply being stolen. So we have existing systems to actually try and overcome that, and that is called compliance. So when we look at water markets, it's not from the lens of how do we get multiple revenue streams from water so we can add value to our economies or protect the environment or enable our First Nation people to access water. From a government perspective, it's regulation top down. So it's all about compliance and compliance and compliance and compliance. It's not about how do we actually incentivize a market to operate efficiently and effectively where we actually believe everyone is acting honestly. And that's because we've been working with centralized systems for 22 years. Databases, spreadsheets, proprietary systems, multiple registries. Water is not homogeneous. So it all comes down to compliance and auditing. And now we're moving into surveillance through satellite technology and drones and things like that. But it comes at a cost to us as taxpayers, because every time a regulator has to go in and actually verify whether water's been taken, that ends up in a court case. And we as taxpayers are constantly having to pay for these breaches. It's not good. It's not fun. Anyway, so what we're finding also is that research suggests that while individuals, companies may be responsible for the act of taking water, it's actually linked to governance. So one of the things that I get passionate about is governance, but not governance from the lens of what we know from the way we work as citizens, where our government regulate us and we have to be compliant. But governance is what we call the lens of this distributed governance, and this is why blockchain technology is fascinating, because at the end of the day, blockchain is a governance technology. It's not a widget, it's not a drone, it's not something that we actually go and build and put in something and put it in a vertical and in a silo. Blockchain is a fundamental way of how we redesign how we share value with each other. That's why it's a governance technology. And that's why we are still working in the world of proof of concepts. Because you have to take multiple agencies, multiple companies, and create them from a silo or siloed systems into ecosystems. And that, unfortunately, is about human behaviour. And technology cannot solve human behaviour. Humans have to lead first. So what we deal with, we have these things called institutional